Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow. I showed that very video a few weeks ago to prosecutors and police in Lagos, Nigeria. We were doing training to help equip them to eradicate this international atrocity. And it was really fulfilling to watch their reaction. Like you, they were so moved. And they said, play it again. Those are the most beautiful people that we've ever seen in our lives. They must be angels sent from God. And truly, Gentry, Matty Page, Tim, and his entire team are angels sent from God to do great miracles on the earth today. Good morning and aloha. Aloha. I'm glad you're familiar with that custom. Some people say, well, don't you realize we're in Utah? And I say, yes, but Utah has such strong ties to the islands where my mom is from. And when we do that, I just feel warmer. And when the weather's 30 degrees outside, it starts me off on the right note. Thank you to my friend, Gail Ruzicka, for inviting me. Thank you to the Eagle Forum for allowing me to come and speak to you for just a few minutes. It's an honor to be here with you. I have a lot of friends here, or people that I consider to be friends. I don't know about the other way. But wanted to say a few things about Tim and his team in a moment. I have a lot of feelings about the work that they do. Before I do that, though, I know you're giving a special recognition, commemoration today, later in the program, to Phyllis Schlafly and her life and her work. And I just wanted to share my own personal appreciation for what she did and an experience that I had a couple years ago. I was honored and blessed to receive an award back in Washington, D.C., and Senator Mike Lee and I went back, and I had a chance to sit and have dinner with Phyllis and her family and people like Foster Freeze and other friends. And in addition to being passionate about life and liberty, and in addition to all of the other work that she did, the impression that I had most was how elegant she was and how powerful a spirit she had to inspire. And I was inspired. I've been asked to give a little bit of an update of things going on in Utah that may affect the work that you do, and I won't go into a long recitation of legislation or proposed legislation. That's the surest way to let everybody fall asleep. But let me say this, that your voices are heard. You do make a difference, and I hope that you continue, I hope to continue to see you on the Hill advocating for those things that help make America strong. Let me highlight a couple of issues that I think are critical threats to our lives and our families and our communities, and ask for your help today. One of them is the specter of suicide. Utah now leads the entire nation when it comes to suicide amongst our teens. And not only is it the number one cause of death in the state of Utah for our young people, if you added up the second, third, and fourth causes of death combined, they don't amount to the same. You can see the devastating effect. Our youth, our veterans, how many of you here have served our country in uniform some way or another? Please raise your hand. Can we honor you right now? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your service. There's not enough thank yous to say to you and your families. And we have these great principles out on the battlefield about never leaving anyone behind. Yet when our servicemen and women come back and try to integrate into society after having stood strong in battles and conflicts, it seems like we forget about them. And far too often, they don't have the resources that they need to assimilate back into a productive life. It is shocking to me that from conflicts in the Middle East, we've now had more veterans lose their life to suicide than we actually had to combat. And if you think about that and our young people and all of the things assailing our youth today, please help us. One thing that you can do is to help publicize an app that you can download for free. Anyone can on their phones across any platform. It's called the Safe UT app. And youth and teens can text someone and immediately have somebody on the other side, a trained professional, respond to them. Not to pass judgment, just to listen and try to help them get through the darkness of the crisis that they might be experiencing. And I could spend an hour talking about that, but I know I have minutes, and so I just want to put that on your radar screen. If you need more information, please reach out to the AG's office. My Chief of Staff, Missy Larson, chairs the state committee for that, and we're working on other mental health crisis issues. That is a real threat to our communities, and we need to talk about that. And sometimes as conservatives, we fear talking about it a little bit because we might feel like if we're honest about it, then others will view us in a way that is not flattering. But it's too much of a reality for us today. We must talk about it and be honest. The second issue is opioid addiction. This is ravaging our nation. In every state, in every county, it is a reality. And for far too long, we've been able to say, well, aren't these just the homeless people, those who are criminals? But I think everyone in this room, I won't ask you to raise your hand, probably knows somebody or has a family member, soccer moms, business dads, our young people who've been caught up in the throes of addiction to painkillers, and then perhaps to heroin, which is the natural progression because it's so much cheaper and more accessible. We're working with a task force with the DEA and the Attorney General's office to bring resources together from the mental health community, the medical community, but we also need people like you to help us reach out, serve on those committees. And so if you have an interest in helping us fight the opioid addiction, please contact my office. Lastly, the global epidemic of human trafficking is real. You just heard from one of the world's foremost experts on this subject. I don't think there's a person on this earth who's done more to fight against human trafficking than my dear friend and brother, Tim Ballard. And someday, ladies and gentlemen, when history books are written, I am confident that people will look back and say, when human trafficking, this scourge and epidemic that is taking so many lives, that is subjecting young women and older women and everybody around the world to slave labor, to sex trafficking, to pornography and sex exploitation, to harvesting of their organs, to being conscripted into military service by strong-armed dictators. When it was at its apex, at its peak in history, some 50 million is what the Global Slavery Index estimates right now for modern-day slaves. A mighty band of people, led by heroes like Tim Ballard and his team, came together and fought that evil. And they were the pivotal point, inflection point in the history of our world that will lead to the eradication one day of this great evil. I'm confident of that because I know God is with them and is watching over them. It is an honor just to be a little piece and part of that. I hope all of you will find ways to support Tim and other organizations like Fight the New Drug, fantastic organizations that are here in Utah, incredible resource. That is why Utah is the tip of the spear. That is why Utah is leading the global effort against human trafficking. Now, we have many other partners and a lot of other good work is being done, so I'm not trying to minimize that. But think about that luxury of having that here in your backyard. Every single one of you can click on the internet and share stories about trafficking because education is the first line of defense. Now, Tim and I love this story, and you've probably heard it before. If you've been to an LDS youth conference or some other kind of conference, it's called the Starfish Story, but I would like to share it with you anyway in closing. Because every single day people ask me, and they ask Tim, and they ask Gail Ruzicka, and they ask you, can you really make a difference with all of the forces arrayed against you? Do you really make a difference? And our answer is absolutely yes, and here's a story to illustrate that. It's a parable. Older gentleman's walking down a beach and sees a young boy frantically throwing starfish back into the ocean. So he approaches him and asks him, "Young man, what are you doing?" The boy says, "Well, the sun is up high, it's low tide, and if I don't get all these starfish back into the ocean, they're going to shrivel up and die." Older man points down to the beach and says, "But son, look, there are tens of thousands of starfish. You're not going to save them all. Do you really think you're making a difference?" Young boy thinks about it for a moment, then picks up a starfish, throws it into the ocean, turns to the gentleman and says, "I don't know, but I know I just made a difference for that one." Every single family that you stand up for, every single unborn child that you advocate for, every single child, woman, boy caught up in the evil of human trafficking that you fight for and help liberate makes a difference. Every time you open your mouth and advocate for religious liberty, you make a difference. Every time you stand strong for life and family, you make a difference. God bless you all. Thank you so much for your time today. It's an honor to serve you.